Hey,
Well,
welcome everybody. We
welcome.
are live on
Yeah,
YouTube, Facebook. How are we on Instagram?
I believe we're going live right now. So if you're on Instagram and you know we are live, let us know in the comments section. And I believe we are. I'm getting some comments here.
We were just talking. There's sunshine over here where we are for the East Coast, Ohio and Michigan, experiencing some sunshine. What's it like for you?
Yeah, we're so happy because we don't get sunshine a lot, right, Susan? We're on that same side of the US. It's a beautiful day here today.
Yes, and I've got
Oh,
snow. So what's your favorite thing about this season, everyone? Here we are, less than 2 weeks away from Christmas. I love these kind of days where there's still snow outside and it's beautiful, and yet we've got full sun and blue skies.
that is perfect. The roads are clear, but we have a light dusting of snow, just enough, right? And I don't
Mhm.
know about you, but one of my favorite things lately, it didn't used to be, maybe I'm settling into a little bit more stillness now, but I love driving around and looking at the Christmas lights.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We used to work for General Electric, and they had a lighting division group here in Cleveland, and we drove by there this weekend. And you used to be able to drive to the whole park, but they do a very nice display. So we drove by there, and it was like nostalgic. I haven't been there since I was that's why I worked in my 20s there. So it's been a while. We know I'm only 30.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So we want to remind you we're here today to dialogue with you about dealing with a chronic liar. And we're
Mm.
on Leslie's public Facebook page. And what that means is it's public. And so anyone can see your comments. If you want to comment, we suggest that you just keep that in mind. We will be taking questions at the end of the call, and we'll have that information in the chat for you. If you have some questions related to our topic or our upcoming group, we're happy to dialogue with you about that.
Mhm.
So we're so grateful as you all are stepping in today. It looks like it's quiet out there so far. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, welcome, Trisha. Thank you.
Mm.
We love this community, and you're all an encouragement to us as well as you participate with one another and with us. And so please feel comfortable to do that and share your needs here. And if you want to do that privately, you can go to leslievernick.com/question/, and Julie will make sure that we get those private questions. Welcome, Debbie. Oh, it sounds beautiful. Tranquil, misty mornings over the river and valley.
I was just reading that, and I'm wondering, do you get sunshine as well? We don't get much sunshine.
Pacific Northwest probably doesn't. It's probably
Yeah, how do
autumn.
you deal with that? I was doing errands last night at like 6 o'clock, and I'm thinking in my mind, just pretend it's light outside because it felt like I should be in bed. And I was like, I'm wondering how these people in Alaska do this. It gets a little hard, doesn't it?
It does get hard. Yes.
All right. So, should we dive into our topic?
Yeah. Yeah. Jeanette asked right off the bat, how do you deal with a habitual liar? We're going to be answering that throughout the next 30 minutes. Hopefully, you'll get
Yeah.
some information about how to deal with a habitual liar, but we would love the interaction. What have you tried and how has it gone? What are your thoughts, ladies?
Yeah, that's a great question. What have you tried? How has it gone?
Mhm.
I go to what does it feel like when you're engaging with a chronic liar? So what have you tried? How has it gone? And what does it feel like to be engaged with someone who is chronic in
Mm.
terms of their lying? Tamara's saying she goes cold turkey. Oh my goodness. And is that Wisconsin? 8 degrees. Ugh.
-8 degrees, it looks like.
Oh, -8. Ooh, mercy. Okay. My husband lies even about dumb things. Yeah, it can become a real habitual behavior pattern.
Mhm. And it's confusing. So when you're asking, "How does it feel?" I think it just feels so confusing and like there's a pit in my stomach. Like, which way is up? What's happening? Um,
Mm,
Especially when it's about everything, right? You don't know when you're gonna meet a lie, when it's significant or
yeah.
insignificant. Why lie about insignificant things?
If I know it's a lie, I get angry.
Mm, mhm,
But if I don't know it's a lie, like if I don't have proof, a lot of times I just feel confused, conflicted, um, yeah, or like just emotionally unsure
mhm,
because there's a part of me that's not trusting, but I don't have actual fact. I think that's when it can become very confusing. That I kind of know you're lying. There's a part of me that really knows it's not true, or you're shifting, you're manipulating, you know, the verbiage or the situation. Yeah,
it's exhausting too, isn't it, to have that
very much.
conflict of your body sensing that something is off and there's a
Mhm.
lie, in the air, and
Yeah.
yet, there's confusion about and self-doubt.
So I feel like when you're engaged in a relationship with someone who's a chronic liar, the bottom line is you may struggle to continue to be in relationship with them and trust them, but there is no trust. So
Mhm,
there's a part of you that feels like you're constantly walking in uncertainty. And I don't know about you, Susan, but when it feels a bit manipulative. And so your defenses are engaged and on guard all the time, which is kind of heightened alert, right?
mhm,
And so that might be tied to some feelings of anxiety and uncertainty. There's nothing better than being in a room with someone that you safely trust.
mhm,
It just feels like I can relax, like sitting before a warm fire
mhm.
and just whatever comes to my heart and mind, I can share and say, I'm safe. I'll be met with honesty. And the opposite of that, when you think about the opposite of that, what do you notice even in your body, right? And I think Coach Susan is a good one to have on this topic today because I know you've had some experience with this.
Absolutely, I believe you have as well, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're describing it very well. There's that
Yeah.
heightened alert, right? That
Mhm.
tenseness that comes up, some anxiety, we've mentioned self-doubt, right? Confusion. Kirsten's saying embarrassment as well. When I feel embarrassed when he's telling people about an experience we shared and he's lying or exaggerating,
Mhm.
right? When that lie gets out to other people, and then there's that confusion of, do I support the lie? Do
Yeah.
I combat the lie right in public here? Yeah, it's very difficult.
So, and Vicky's saying, I feel violated.
Yeah.
Um, that's a strong word. And yeah, it's a violation of really, it's almost a betrayal of the relationship as well. And SH is saying it took me a long time to accept. I think there is a part of us that wants to engage in denial
Mhm.
about what's really happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Lisa's saying constant anxiety, walking on eggshells, even a feeling of being scared.
So, and I also feel like, you know, you might kind of be engaged in trying to figure out what the truth is. That can kind of be a full-time job, right? Um, it might cause you to pull back in the relationship, right? I mean, there's just no foundation of trust. So for me, it's kind of a constant emotional roller coaster. What is real? What is not?
Mhm.
So I didn't see too much of, well, we did see a few of you weigh in on what you've tried so far. So, how are you finding ways to manage relationships with people that are chronic liars?
Mhm. Well, I think Lisa said walking on eggshells. That can be a tactic, right? If I just kind of
Yeah.
am delicate around this person and maybe peace faking, um, that
Mm.
will help. But does it help? I think it creates other issues.
So I want to just put this out there. I'm wanting is it possible to have a healthy relationship with someone who repeatedly lies to you?
What do you think, ladies? I know my answer to that.
Is it possible for you to have a relationship with someone who consistently and repeatedly lies to you? And I might even change that, Susan, and you can tell me what you think. Is it possible for me to have a relationship with someone who intermittently lies to me?
Mm,
Our topic today is chronic, but what about someone who is just not honest with me? But they don't habitually lie to me.
mhm. I see a lot of no's popping up in the chat.
Yeah.
It's not possible to be in healthy relationship. I don't think it's possible to feel safe or have trust in those
No.
types of relationships. Either one of those relationships, both are very damaging.
So I'm wondering if we could get better at calling it something other than what it is. Would you even really call it a relationship? What do you think?
Well, you threw the word healthy in there. It certainly isn't a healthy relationship, but it may be a relationship like it's even hard to have even a roommate relationship with somebody who's a liar, right? Or a work relationship. It is some semblance of a relationship, but it isn't a good one.
I'm looking up a term for how do we define relationships. I think you're right. Um, so maybe what we want to do is define what type of relationship this is.
Mm,
It's not a healthy one, then what is it? And how do I find my place in that? And
mm,
April's saying there is no reality without truth.
mhm,
You ladies have it. Debbie's saying it's not possible to have an intimate, healthy, and vulnerable relationship with people who chronically lie, either outwardly or by omission. I honestly, I would say to you, I might say I don't know that I want to be in relationship with people like that. And that would require me to make some changes about how I see myself in interaction with that person and how I would define the relationship. Because I think part of the problem is if it's someone that you're close with, or maybe it's even a coworker that you've
mhm,
been friends with, and you find out that they're lying to you, speaking poorly about you to someone else, um, I would have to decide where I want to be with that and how I want to be different. I would have to first tell myself this isn't clearly the relationship I want to be having.
mhm,
Then what's next?
mm. Great question. Then what's next?
Yeah. So I'm working with a coworker who was my friend who is a liar. How does that, defining the problem, I think, is part of it. Or I'm married to someone who doesn't speak the truth to me.
Mhm,
Or I can't trust my child to be honest with me about their feelings. They chronically lie and
mhm,
hide and mask. Yeah. What do we do with that? How do we solve that?
mhm. How do you solve it? Can it be solved single-handedly by you to solve that? I would
Mm,
question that. But what can you do for yourself, I think is the question.
yes.
Yeah, can there be distance in the relationship? So, like Coach Diana is saying, there may be some relationships that you have to maintain because it's a work relationship of some sort or a co-parenting relationship. So finding ways to deal with that without losing yourself,
Yeah.
without becoming unhealthy yourself.
If it's a fellow believer, would there be some biblical reasons or mandates for how we might handle it if it's someone who calls himself a believer? Would that be different from maybe like a coworker who hasn't made a profession of faith?
Mm. Yeah. So you're, I think, maybe alluding to giving them some feedback
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that, calling them back to their faith. Uh, mhm.
Yes.
Biblical reproof, perhaps I might
Bib
call it.
Well, yeah, I think the Bible's really clear about that. That if somebody sins against you, or in Matthew 18:15 says that we are to go to them and tell them. And if they listened, then we have gained a person. But if they don't listen, there's some admonition about going with someone else. But I think the first call to action is we're talking about someone who's chronically lying. And I think we always maybe skip to what we need to do in response uh, down the road. But I always say, and we talked about this yesterday, the first response is, have you spoken up?
Mm,
Have you made it clear that you understand what's happening and how it's impacting the relationship? Look,
mhm.
we're getting all kinds of scriptures. There you go.
Beautiful, thanks, ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you may be met
Mhm.
with gaslighting, right?
Yeah.
Invalidating your experience, the person saying, "I'm not lying," "You're the one that's lying." You might be met with that, but, I think, like Diana is saying, it's always, useful to try that as a first step and see what happens, and then if you're met with gaslighting or blaming or any of those things, it's kind of moving on to what's next.
Now what do I do? I have a problem with this person I'm in relationship with. I cannot trust them. They lied to me. Now what?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Debbie's suggesting standing in your truth with compassion and strength. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I Go ahead.
I was just reading Trisha's comment, when 2 people are going in different directions, it's not a relationship, it's a battle.
It is very good. That's a very good comment. Yeah.
Mhm.
So if someone refuses to listen, it changes the relationship. And are we willing to flow with that?
Mhm.
Right? Am I willing to? So suppose I called you out on something, hypothetically, and you gaslit me. You refuse to acknowledge it. And my desire and my goal would be to move forward with you in a close and trusting relationship. But that's not happening. Um, will I continue to pretend that everything's okay? And will I continue to engage you with the same degree of intimacy and closeness? Or will I pull back and preserve and protect myself? And what might that look like?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What might that look like? And it can get confusing, when they turn the tables on you, right? For example, someone might say to you, "Well, yeah, I lied, but I had to lie to you because you were gonna lose your cool if I told you the truth."
Mm.
You would have punished me if I told you the truth, or you would have been angry if I told you the truth, so I had no choice, but I had to lie to you.
I've had that happen.
Mhm.
I have literally had that happen to me. Yeah. And yeah, I was told because I have a temper. How long have you known me? Have you ever seen my temper?
I have not.
Hello. So yeah, sometimes we're met with gaslighting,
Mhm.
and do we can stand up and we can agree to disagree, but it's going to be at a cost. And I think really dealing with a chronic liar, the first step is speaking out. The second step is recognizing if that person isn't hearing me, I now have to adjust my expectations and the way that I walk. And y'all have been so wonderful in putting some scriptures in the chat about how the Bible does say to seek to protect ourselves. I get a little concerned because the Bible does talk about Satan being the father of lies. And we know that what we open the door to kind of comes in and corrupts us. So we want to walk in truth. And so, like, if this person's lying to me and I'm pretending like it doesn't matter, or I'm not accepting the truth that I can't really be safe in this relationship, then I'm engaging in deceit as well. Am I not?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can be pulled into it. Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and falling for those lies sometimes and taking it on as self-blame, right? When blame is given to you, I know that happens sometimes with women. Well, it must be my fault then. And what do I need to be doing differently so he doesn't need to lie to me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
SH is saying this is true. They are not interested in a genuine relationship, is what they're demonstrating to you, but in their defenses. That's extremely frustrating. Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we have someone in Instagram saying, I'm unable to resolve a relationship by myself.
Mhm.
And
Two people, doesn't it?
pardon me?
It takes two people to make a repair and have a healthy relationship.
Yeah. And I think, I've been watching Brene Brown's new Netflix thing on being courageous.
Mm.
And I think it takes some vulnerability to speak to someone about how their behavior is affecting you and the relationship. It's a courageous thing to do. And it might put you at risk.
Mhm. Yeah, risk. What kind of risks are you thinking?
Well, I think a lot of times, when I think about her talking about being courageous, I think it takes courage to be honest and to even I'll use the word confront someone about what's happening and what we're experiencing. And if that's, I don't know, but that would be my natural predisposition is to avoid, ignore, and withdraw without really approaching and speaking truth. It takes courage for me to speak truth about what's really happening. And
Mhm.
sometimes when I do speak truth about what's happening and I get, like you had suggested, excuses, blame shifting, or like that didn't happen kind of a thing, where do it's hard to know where to go after that. So if you're someone and you're listening in and you're that person who finds it hard to really stand in the truth and speak it out, just put a 1 because I think it takes courage to do that.
It
Yeah.
does take courage. Yeah, especially if you've done it and been met by any of those things. Backing away, can be really tempting, just quieting down and kind of slumping over, right? Moving away from the relationship.
Well, I think a lot of times once we make the truth, in my mind, once we make the truth apparent and we speak it out, now it's out there and the
Mhm.
relationship has changed. And that can cause some degree of uncertainty and some uncomfortableness. And so we may feel even more raw and more vulnerable when we do that.
Mhm.
It takes practice to be strong in these things, but as you have said in the chat, it takes courage to declare truth.
Mm. Mhm.
And at some point, it may be, what will we say, Susan? Unwise and exhausting if you've done it again and again, and it is a pattern. But I think it takes courage initially to say what we're experiencing and how it's affecting the relationship.
Mhm.
I think it's so important to speak the truth.
It is. I love that Brenda is reminding us all dangerous people should not be confronted in private, right? Safety, if you suspect safety is a concern here, yes, use your judgment there, be wise. And please know that we're not pushing you to confront someone who is not safe and is going to put you in danger. We recognize some of you may be in those kind of relationships where out of self-protection, you don't confront.
Mm, I would agree.
Mhm.
100%. So when we talk about we're trusting that where you can stand up and speak up without affecting your physical safety.
Mhm.
There may be some punitive responses for speaking up. There may always be, depending on the person that you're dealing with. Thank you, Julie. Julie's reiterating our important points. She's so amazing. Julie's our back end tech.
She
So,
is.
with a chronic liar, or someone who won't admit or acknowledge really their behavior, they kind of gaslight around it. What's your go-to? For me, it's creating distance. Um, what would you say, Susan?
Yeah, creating distance is a good skill. I think building trust within yourself, discernment, focusing on facts.
Oh, I like that. Focusing on facts, building trust within yourself, listening to your discernment. So, building trust within yourself for me is about believing my experience, regardless of what someone else is portraying it as, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I might need some outside help with that as well. I might call someone and say, "Hey, look, this happened to me. Am I seeing it? Or is there something I need to see differently here?" Or maybe if there's a third person in the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, some validation might be helpful as well. Yeah, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I'm just reading in the chat here.
Um, SH is saying, I think we feel if only we could get them to understand. And I think those are always those try harder moments. That's us stepping in and taking responsibility for fixing the fact that they are lying, they are hiding, they
Mm-hmm.
are blame shifting, or choosing to portray the situation otherwise than it is to preserve and protect whatever it is they're wanting to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is not your responsibility to fix someone who is walking in a destructive way with you. It is our job to call it out and to speak about it when and if it is safe to do so.
Mm-hmm. It gets really hard, especially when you've got a lot of things riding on it, a lot of emotion invested, a lot of hopes and dreams invested in the relationship, whatever that relationship is, a parent, a child, a spouse, is that, residing in truth can sometimes be really scary because you're giving up a dream, essentially, which then brings
Oh,
up lots of grief.
you said the magic word. You're giving up a dream.
Mm.
So for me, when you say that, that's like the dream of what I thought the relationship was versus what the reality is. Is that what you're speaking of?
Yes, and I think that's what keeps us in that try harder place. If
Mm.
only I could get them to understand. If only
Yeah.
I could fill in the blank, I could save my dreams, right? In other words, what's
Well,
happening?
yeah, because it feels better for me to believe than it does to step into the reality and the harshness of those painful and difficult emotions.
Mhm.
Sometimes acknowledging the truth really invites grieving and suffering.
It does. And
Yeah.
there's nothing more that human beings want to avoid than grief. So
Mhm.
painful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So, some other strategies um, that I might need to employ is remembering that it's not my fault,
Mhm.
that it's a choice. It might be a character issue. It might be, we can label it however we want, but it's a sinful pattern of destructiveness. I always get a shocker in my mind when I want to anchor in truth, because the opposite of truth is lying and deception. And we know that that is not who we're called to be as believers. In fact, it's stepping into really opening the door to evil.
Mm.
Um, so sometimes, though, I do, as we have said, that sometimes when you're confronting someone, we have to recognize that it could get sketchy. It could escalate into an argument, right?
Mhm. It
And
could.
so when I'm speaking my truth, I'm not doing it because I'm wanting this person. It's not my job to get this person to see it. I'm merely declaring the truth because it's important for me also to say what's happening and what my experience is, correct?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so not taking it personally
Yeah.
as it being your fault, and also, um, not losing your own temper, right? Coming back at them. I see Leanne's comment in the chat. How do you remain calm and safe when their explosion of swearing and screaming is frightening? So when you're frightened, I don't know that you can, in that moment, remain calm. You can take a breath. There's a quick assessment of, am I safe? And how can I get to safety if I'm not? Right? And then finding your calm after you're safe. I don't think the calm is going to come before safety.
Mhm.
So that is key, finding safety.
Yeah, and so if you're trying to have a conversation with someone that's escalating and you're telling your body is saying to you it's not safe here. I'm beginning to get anxious and afraid. Um, what what comes to mind to do for me? Exit. I might say, I'll come back when you're calm. Um, this doesn't sound. The term I usually use is this isn't productive. Let's talk
Mhm.
about this when you're calm.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and finding the exit is important. If you know this person has a pattern of being frightening towards you, right? Whether that means they get big, they come close to you, they use loud or explicit language, making sure when you're in the room that you know where the exit is, you have a plan in your mind, a safety plan of how you can leave.
yeah, I might say something like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And I'll put a hand between me and that person. I'm not doing this. Um, Nothing good is going to come of this when the emotions are so high. Let's take a break. Um, I can see that, long time ago, when I did some training in inpatient work, um, they'll teach you de-escalation strategies. And one of the de-escalation strategies is to just name what's happening. I can
Mhm.
see you're angry and upset.
Mhm.
Maybe we could talk later.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great tool. I mentioned validation yesterday as one of my favorite go-to tools in relationships. Narration is always a good one as well.
Yeah.
This is what I see happening.
Yeah, I want to take a peek at your toolkit sometime. That sounds interesting.
Mhm.
So someone's saying my husband gets triggered when I put my hands up. That's so interesting. Hmm. I like to put my hand in between. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying he may see that as a threat. But
Yeah.
also it's a boundary, right? So maybe making sure that it doesn't feel like threatening, it's not coming towards him or not above him, but it's, the boundary of don't get any closer to me. I've reached my limit.
I'm a little
Um,
curious about why that's a threat. I hear what you're saying is maybe he doesn't like boundaries.
yes, and that's very likely.
I might get curious with him and saying, it seems like you get triggered when I put my hand up. She said hands. I
Mhm,
would just use one hand. But I might say to him, can you tell me what's happening for you in that moment? Get some
mhm,
information, see if he will be honest. But if we're talking about chronic liars, I don't know that he's gonna be honest with his feelings. Of course, I'm just assuming, but it would be interesting to see what he would say and what he'd reveal.
mhm.
I don't
For
know.
destructive people, boundaries do feel threatening
Mm,
oftentimes, and that we're gonna be talking about boundaries later on, next week or the following week. I saw that upcoming as one of our topics.
nice.
So join in for that.
So, Sherry's saying it's exiting is hard when there are kids, and I'm not sure, like, if you're just having a conversation with someone and you're saying that they're lying to you, you may wanna just step out of the room, but if we're talking about having a confrontation that's escalating and you wanna exit, I might have a ready bag and say to the kids, "Come on, we're gonna go outside and play for a bit, or we're gonna take a drive to the store, let's get some ice cream." Just have kinda some ideas in mind, and I always say that, especially if it's your partner, and you're exiting because they're angry, you don't wanna escalate them anymore. What you might wanna say to them is, "I'm just gonna step out for a bit so that we can both calm down. I'll be back." Um,
Mhm.
yeah. just to kind of assure them that I'm not gone for good. I'm just stepping out right now. I am coming back. There's no need to escalate any further.
Mhm. And the "I'm coming back," I think is important, especially when kids are involved, and if you're
Yeah.
taking them with you, that this isn't you kidnapping them or stealing them away. It's, "We will be back. We're
Yeah.
de-escalating."
We're taking a break.
Mhm.
Yeah. A short break. Yeah. Um, all right. So I love what you said. So basically, just to reiterate, we're going to take some questions in just a little bit. Um, it's not your fault that someone's lying to you. It's not personal. It's more about them. And it's just teaching you a little bit about who they are and what they do. Um, trust your gut when you know that something's amiss. Use your discernment with how you speak out and speak up. But also, believe your reality and, take in that information, listen to their words, watch their body language, and obviously set boundaries around how you're willing to do relationship with them and what you're willing to tolerate. Sometimes it's necessary to step back entirely. Yeah.
Mhm. I saw a question earlier in the chat. Someone was asking the difference between a pathological liar and a chronic liar. How would you define that, Diana?
I think they sound the same to me.
Mhm.
Um, I guess if we're looking at it in terms of a continuum, um, I would think I would think there's like a truthful person, and then there's a chronic liar, and then pathological just seems a little bit more intense to me, like they can't tell the truth even if they try. A
Mhm.
chronic liar might be someone who habitually does it, but pathological is like, I think for me, I'm not even aware I'm doing it.
Mhm.
I don't even need to do it. And I do know people who are like that. They tend to fall on a spectrum of, I don't like to throw this word around, but we might say they might fall in that more extreme narcissistic kind of behavior. Um,
Mhm. It sounds more diagnosable, doesn't it? Like
it does.
a
Yeah.
disorder, and
Yeah.
compulsive and pathological. I kind of see those as similar.
Yeah. It's pretty extreme. Chronic to me is like I'm just in this behavior pattern. Like, I would almost rather not tell somebody where I'm going, what I'm doing, than lie. That's just like, and I think that if you practice like white lies, it just kind of grows, and then before you know it, you're lying. So get comfortable get comfortable with just not speaking rather than lying. And yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, there are a lot of different types of lies, aren't there?
there sure
When we're
is.
Yeah, when we're talking about that, the black lies, they're sometimes called, are those bold-faced lies where somebody's looking you in the eye and just, telling you something that's completely untrue,
Yeah.
right? And they're just selling you on something that's not based in reality at all. Those white lies that you were referring to tend to be those small, more insignificant, or to protect someone's feelings.
They're all um they all, what do we say,
All damaging. Yes.
damaging to ourselves if we're engaging in it, but also damaging to relationship.
Yeah.
um yeah, or how about like keep leaving out the details,
Mm.
just speaking half.
Yeah. Half truths for sure.
Yeah.
Those are other kinds of lies. I look at broken promises also as lies. They tell you they're going to do something without the intention of actually following through.
Oh,
Way for
yeah.
appeasement as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
And I think with destructive people, oftentimes it comes up as, well, I forgot.
Mm.
I didn't remember I said that, or I didn't remember that we had that agreement. And that can be a form of lying as well.
Wow. I hope as we're saying this that you all are recognizing maybe when this has happened to you with someone else that you didn't even realize that it actually was a bold-faced lie.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then there's that denial, right? The gaslighting, that we hear so much about these
Mm,
days. Mm.
yeah. I always like this is my favorite, and I think adults do it, and it's interesting. But I have worked with people, and I've known people who bold-face like it's like a you know how like little toddlers they'll have their hand in the cookie jar and they'll say, "I'm not in the cookie jar."
Mhm.
You know, like, it's so obvious, but it's really interesting when adults engage in that. Like, we all know it's a lie, and they're the only one believing it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's just bold-faced denial. Mm. They're so
Absolutely.
comfortable that they'll do anything, and they project, like, us they'll tell a story, um, yeah, as if it's believable.
Mhm.
But it's almost like with it's almost in a kid-like way, like, "My hand is not in the cookie jar, but you're watching them go in and take," right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, the audacity, right, to tell a lie
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Yes. So it does take a lot of, we've talked about strength, courage, um, clarity, all
Yes.
these things to really handle a chronic liar well. If you're noticing that's a struggle for you, I want to invite you to join our coaching group that's starting in January. If you need help, whatever relationship you're in, this is not just for marital relationships, any relationship, and you want to work on yourself to get stronger, to get more clarity in relationships, to practice good relationship skills, this may be a group for you. So I'm just going to put up the details. If you want to learn more, go to leslievernick.com/change to see what our Empowered to Change group coaching experience is all about. We start mid-January. We're excited about this.
Yeah.
And you all, we've gotten great participation in this group. Many of our groups have sold out to the point where we've added a couple new ones. So if you looked before and thought, well, there's no time that works for me, look again. We have added 2 more groups because we've gotten such great feedback on this.
Yeah, we just opened up a Saturday class. We opened up another evening class. So I think our evenings were all full, and we knew that you all wanted this, so we decided we would make it possible.
Mhm. So there's still an evening group that you can join in. We have several daytime groups with a few spots left. And yeah, the newest Saturday group is open as well.
Mm. So, do we have any questions that we want to go to before we don't see any questions from you all for today. Um, I'd like to ask you, what is your greatest takeaway or your insights from our conversation today on chronic lying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if you do have questions, we still have a few minutes. We'd be happy to answer those on our topic of how to deal with a chronic liar. You can email those or send those to leslievernick.com/question/, and Julie will help us get those questions.
Yeah.
Um, and also, if you have questions about group coaching or empowered to change, please let us know. If you're feeling on the fence for some reason, let us help you.
Absolutely. My question is, okay, so I'm thinking about this. What would it cost you to not engage in changing those stuck points or to engage in the process of growth?
Mm,
What
yeah.
would it Yeah, what would it cost you? And I mean the obvious answer is status quo. But what could be different? I don't know about you, but Susan and I have been teaching this class for a couple years now. I'm a little bit longer. There's not a time when I don't walk through this class as we're preparing and moving through the material ourselves, where I'm looking at it and on my notes, I'm saying, oh, wow, I highlighted this area of growth for myself. Now I'm on to something else. You
Mm.
will always have access to the material, which is really wonderful. You will have a 6-month opportunity to be in community with a bunch of other women that are engaged in growth as well. And so the link is leslievernick.com/change if you're wanting to look and see what's available. And Jenny's saying despair. Yeah, I mean, just staying stuck in that ball of emotions. And I don't know where your growth is needed. We cover so many things in these 6 months that it would be hard for you not to walk away and say, wow, I just had no idea. But as you dive in, transformation is possible. And, what we're offering here is a biblical worldview about
Mhm.
knowing you and walking in relationship with yourself and with others in a way that is very empowering.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, a question, can they not handle being wrong? So, these destructive others, these chronic liars, can they not handle being wrong? Is that why they lie sometimes? Is it just easier to tell a lie? I think that's definitely one possibility. We can only make some guesses. It could be many different things, right? Shame,
Yeah, it can be a strategy.
strategy.
It can be a defense against anxiety or against being wrong, being found out, or maybe a pattern of hiding sin. They don't want to be exposed, right? It could be so many things. But I think and it could be that I just want to craft this image of myself and I don't want to get in touch with who I really am or what I'm really doing. Um, yeah, so people are behavior is complex,
Mm.
and one thing I learned in college, and it is true. Behavior is multiply caused, and so when you're engaging in behavioral research, um, that's really important to know, especially this field, because it's very hard to establish cause and effect, and there's never one reason. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And unfortunately, that's because we are complex beings, right?
Mm.
And so sometimes you may never really know the answer to that, but you may have some ideas. But that's for you to flesh out about yourself. And the question of why am I lying is the question for them to work on. Like, and you want someone to really delve into and the question I always ask myself is like, what's going on with me that I blah, 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 whatever it is, right? What's going on with me that I don't feel secure in myself? What's going on with me that I felt the need to conceal that? And that's where the Holy Spirit meets you and
Mhm.
starts to show you where you need to really confess and do the work and engage in allowing the Holy Spirit along with the work that you do. It's not like a benign process. The Holy Spirit just doesn't wave a magic wand and say, "Okay, you're good." I mean, it's really a process of our engaging in earnestly wanting to be different with intentionality.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that's the heart. And so that you can notice, is that the heart of the person that I'm struggling with who's in this chronic destructive pattern
Mhm.
of lying? And if
Mhm.
that's not their heart, it tells me a lot about where they're headed.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and there's wisdom in that. We can get stuck in the why, right? Trying to
Yeah.
understand the other person, which it's their work to do, as Coach Diana said. But we get stuck in that why. I think to have compassion and empathy for them could be the positive behind that, but also then it keeps us moving in the direction of how do I fix them? How do I stop this from being a problem for them? Instead of really asking yourself, what do I want to do? Because I've noticed a pattern with this person. How am I going to manage myself if I'm in a relationship to somebody who chronically lies? For whatever reason it's happening,
Yeah.
it is happening, right? And it's damaging.
It's hard to anchor in that because I think a lot of times we just want to anchor in the shock of it all. Like, I can't believe it. You know what I mean? Like, you're lying to me. And like, even when I confront you, you're still lying to me. Like, it's hard for us. It feels like a huge betrayal, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but like when I even talk about it as we're discussing it, I feel the impact to myself spiritually, emotionally, and even physically, in those places where someone has destructively just hidden, lied, or deceived you. Like, and you're not in control of changing any of that. And so what you said is so powerful. Just accepting it
Hmm.
is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Trisha's asking, is an unwillingness to work a category of lying? I see that in the chat. It could be. It could be in the sense that they believe they're unwilling to recognize their own problems, right? I don't have a problem. I don't have anything to work on. The lie might be, you're the problem, not me. So
Yeah.
it's possible. But the bigger question is, if you're in relationship to somebody who's unwilling to do their work, what does that mean for you?
And let's see, we have SMC Payne saying that her Empowered to Change group has continued to support each other even after the program ended. And that is so true. I still hear from some of my women, they are still meeting. I don't know, it's been like 5 years down the road. It's been an amazing support for them. Mm.
Mm,
Emma is saying the liar has to want to change and you cannot force someone else. We can only concentrate on ourselves and living in truth and integrity. So powerful.
mhm. So we have another question here. Is it possible that someone who lies has convinced themselves that what they are saying is true, like an alternate persona of themselves, like they are the nice guy, like their heart is pure, like they just want to do what's right, but their actions don't line up with this? But they're so convincing because they themselves believe the lie is possible. I've been in a marriage for 18 years to a man that I do not trust because he has patterns of this over and over. He apologized, but doesn't change. But he is very convincing because he himself believes that he is the nice guy willing to change. Mm.
Well, we know that's true, right?
Mm.
The Bible really clearly tells us that we're capable of the utmost amount of deceit. And the problem is that when we open the door to a little bit of deceit, it can rapidly cycle into a lot of deceit. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, we are really, and so sometimes I would be working with individuals and helping them to really uncover their blind spots, which is a part of what we do in Empowered to Change, right?
Mm.
And I would think as I would walk with them, I would think, oh my goodness, it would be like a mirror into myself. Like if I'm working with people and I'm seeing them struggle so hard with their blind spots, I know I have some too, right?
Mhm.
And so, but we're not talking about we're talking about, the blind spot in this instance being the fact that I'm not willing to even engage in the fact that I'm not being honest with myself, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can lie to ourselves for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is completely possible. And we do find that people want to maintain a false image. It's,
Mhm.
for me, equivalent to, the enemy masquerading as an angel of light. There's nothing honest in that. Um, and so, you know, we want to feel good about ourselves. And so we engage in this mirror image without ever really allowing the Lord to show us what's truly going on inside.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's important, ladies, in these kind of relationships to really center on what is your problem, right? Not what is that person's problem. Their problem might be they continually lie. But what is your biggest problem with that?
Yeah.
That you don't feel safe, that you're in a constant place of anxiety, that you're feeling confused, you live in self-doubt, all those things that you've been putting in the chat, those results of being in relationship to somebody who's a chronic liar, it's damaging to you and it becomes a problem for you. And then what will you do to help yourself, to protect yourself, to not stop your own growth and your own purpose in the Lord?
So our tech team might shoot me for saying this, but if you're interested in Empowered to Change and you've waited till this long to sign up, there is an incentive. We are having a welcome call at 2:00. If you
Mhm.
sign up and pay before 2:00, you will get an email and an invitation to join that welcome call. And we won't be starting until mid-January, so you have some time to settle in, enjoy the holidays, and then plan to do some work.
Mhm.
We will be filling up quickly and slowing down a little bit during Christmas week. So we want to thank you for being here with us today and for really engaging with us. It's always wonderful to have you dialogue with us and let us know your thoughts. As we decide to kind of come to a close today again, please share with us in the chat what was gold for you today.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like if we walk away with one or two nuggets, I usually write them on 3x5 cards and kind of remind myself of those. Good for you. Rachel said she signed up. We're looking forward to having you.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, Tamara said the same thing. She's excited for E2C to start.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So Jenny's saying most help today by the validation, the echoing and narrating what
Mm.
is happening does bring a tiny bit of health back into an intense discussion. Yeah, and that's what we're talking about, right? Making those small steps forward toward health to bring you more clarity, more peace.
I
Mm.
can't stand chronic lying. Yeah. So we want to empower you to deal with that. Well, I'm glad you signed up, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's about 1 hour from now that we're going to be doing that extra call. Coach Diana and I will be there. Coach Leanne will be there. Leslie Vernick will be there. If you're able to join your group in the next hour, you can be there as well to already start meeting the people who might be in your group. Come January, we're going to just kick this off by giving you a little tutorial about the group and to start experiencing together what it's going to be like.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's a
Yeah,
good, yeah.
it is. And I'm
So,
excited for that to happen in 1 hour.
well, we're going to say goodbye for now, and we'll be live with you next week. So you ladies have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the beautiful sunshine we're having, and
Absolutely.
goodbye for now.
Goodbye, ladies.